What's good, y'all? This is Colin with BC. So you could probably guess who I am. I've been gone for a while. I've been slacking. For the past week and a half, I've been sick as a dog. I had pneumonia. But I'm feeling a little bit better. So we're going to get back to this. In today's video, it's going to be a little bit different. I like to laugh. But I also like to watch like educational stuff. Like you can call me a nerd. Don't bother me. But I like to gain knowledge of pretty much everything. Science, the way the earth was and will be type stuff. But in today's video, we're going to watch the ancient mammals that reigned before the dinosaurs. Animals way back then, ancient animals, they looked crazy, vicious. Looked like everything was made to kill. But this should be really interesting. And let's get to it.
When they think of what animals dominated land habitats before the dinosaurs, they might think of giant insects, or maybe large squatting amphibians. But stretching about 80 million years before the dinosaurs took over the world,
See, they look crazy.
The dominating creatures were actually ancestors of mammals and their relatives. About 340 million years ago, during a period known as the Carboniferous, land vertebrates were represented by small lizard-looking animals. They had moved away from their fish-like ancestors in evolving the appropriate adaptations to take up permanent residence on the land.
Looks like a normal lizard to me.
Mainly adapting to amniotic eggs that could be laid on the land, meaning they were no longer tied to the water. Very early on, these massive land creatures diverged into three distinct groups. There were synapsids, anapsids, and diapsids, all categorized by the amount of holes in their skull. Anapsids had none, synapsids had one, and diapsids had two. Diapsids would go on to become reptiles shortly after the split, and then eventually birds and dinosaurs. The consensus is that anapsids have no currently living representatives, although some scientists have argued that turtles are in fact anapsids, but this is a controversial theory. Finally, synapsids contain all living mammals and all their extinct relatives, although they would be barely recognizable as mammals at this point in history. Right from the start of the Permian, 300 million years ago, it was the synapsids that were becoming the dominant land creatures, and reptiles would have to wait. One of the earliest large synapsids was a very strange-looking creature called Cotyloryncus that had an almost comically tiny head for its body size.
Looked like a
and this
turtle
was
with
not the
ribs.
only weird-looking early synapsid, as there was also a Stemosuchus that had large horns coming from its face, not too dissimilar to antlers. Although the most unquestionably famous early synapsid was Dimetrodon. The different species of Dimetrodon varied in size a lot, but the largest may have been almost 5 meters, meaning it was probably the largest predator around at this time. It possessed
5 meters? That big ass lizard was 15 feet? Wow. I'm glad that motherfucker ain't around today.
Like Secodontosaurus and Edaphosaurus. The early Permian most likely had a very similar climate to the current day, so it was thought that these sails may have been used for thermoregulation, as it would have been pretty cold in the winter in a lot of these habitats. Dimetrodon were far more closely related to you than they were to dinosaurs, but with their reptilian appearance and probable cold-bloodedness, you could be forgiven for not seeing it.
Yeah.
However, Dimetrodon were early synapsids,
like a reptile
and later they would start to become much more mammalian. The more mammalian descendants are referred to as therapsids, and these animals started to outcompete the early synapsids like Dimetrodon in the mid-Permian. A less talked about but defining feature of mammals, unique among the animal kingdom, are their ear bones. Unlike all other animals, mammals have 3 bones that aid in the function of their ears. Reptiles only possess 1 bone in their ear, but their jaws are much more complicated with many bones. Early synapsids also had complex multiple bone jaws, and over the course of the evolution of synapsids, these bones started to ride further and further back until eventually forming the ear bones in early species of mammal.
Alright, I know this is going to make me sound slow, but how come animals can hear even if they don't have ears that protrude from their head. That's just always been weird to me. I don't even usually see a hole like in lizards' heads or whatever. How do they hear?
Evolution of these mammal ancestors that it is often used to gauge how closely related a synapsid is to a true mammal. Moving down the synapsid family tree closer to true mammals, you would find groups of animals like Gorgonopsia that were what you would refer to as stem mammals, breaking away from the mammal lineage before they became mammals, but they still had many mammalian features. The jaw and ear bone was
See,
starting to
no
look a lot more
ears,
mammal-like,
but I bet you it could
and their
hear.
hind legs were directly beneath them, unlike with reptiles. The largest species was the size of a bear, and they were ferocious carnivores, tearing into flesh with their saber teeth. However, there was a lot more to
Shit, that looks like a reptile mixed with a tiger of some sort. I bet you that was one of the apex predators back then. 360 million years ago. Let's think about that.
different jobs. But by far the most amazing thing about these animals is that they possess some fur covering. It is not thought that they were completely covered in fur, but they had found some fossilized feces with hair in it from the time period thought to belong to a Gorgonopsid. The largest mass extinction in history hit the Earth at the end of the Permian 250 million years ago, and along with nearly all other life on Earth, the majority of synapsids were killed, including the Gorgonopsians. The end of the mass extinction marks the beginning of the Triassic period, and despite the devastation, shortly after, synapsids was still the dominant group of animals, with Listosaurus having a short-lived but massive success right at the beginning of the Triassic. During the Triassic, the climate was much hotter and drier than the Permian, and this is when you start to see a previously obscure reptile known as archosaurs start to gain a foothold. Basal archosaurs are the ancestors of crocodiles and dinosaurs, and they seem to have been better suited for the new environment. Although archosaurs were becoming more and more common and diversifying, a group of synapsids that included Listosaurus called the Cynodonts still dominated.
Just imagine if crocodiles and alligators had long legs like that.
They coexisted with the dinosaurs for about 30 million years, and perhaps even co-evolved, as towards the end of their existence they grew to very large sizes. The largest and last Cynodont was
the one on the left
and was the size of an
was looking like a dick with
died
teeth.
out 200 million years ago. The ancestor of sauropods replaced them as the dominant herbivores. The synapsids would not be the dominant animals again until the extinction of the dinosaurs. The Cynodonts weren't close relations.
Yeah, I've heard the theories that dinosaurs
than Gorgonopsians.
Evolved
the
into
representatives
birds
of the
and
mammal
stuff.
ancestral lineage during the Triassic were the basal members of a group called Cynodontia
Could be.
that contains all living mammals, their ancestors, and their closest relatives. Their close relatives would contain animals like Triarachidon, that was a burrowing animal. A multi-chambered burrow was found from the early Triassic containing 20 skeletons of this animal. This is the earliest evidence of cohabitation in burrows and shows a level of social sophistication previously thought to be unique to primitive mammals. Cynodons like these had marks in their upper and lower jaw, which is what you see with animals that have whiskers. And adding to all this, they were also partially warm-blooded, but not to the same extent as mammals.
Kind of.
Artist depictions often show them with fur, and although
My dog would have a field day with that
there is
animal.
currently no evidence of this. Direct evidence for complete fur coverings in synapsids did not turn up until 205 million years ago in mammalia forms, which at this point in history were small rodent-like animals that would eventually become true mammals during the Jurassic. Although the end of the Triassic marked the end of their dominance, one group of non-mammalian synapsids called Tritolontidae survived right up into the early Cretaceous as little as 110 million years ago.
Is that right?
Thank you for watching. If you'd like to be notified of future uploads from me, then consider subscribing.
Dude talks hella proper, don't he? Well, I guess that's the end of it. Yeah, that was interesting. It was slow paced. It wasn't all that funny, but had some weird looking creatures. And it was interesting. 360 million years ago. You think you could have survived during that time? Maybe with some kind of weapon or something. Maybe. But that 15-foot, whatever it was, that's a long lizard. Or I don't know. Was that a lizard? I forgot already. Damn. But yeah, if you like these educational videos, let me know. I'll get some more going. If you rock with my videos, like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll be back to y'all with another one. Take it easy.